History in Motion is proudly brought to you by Midas Sport and its associate sponsors. Welcome to the Midas Historic Tour. This week we travel to the former goldfields of Velkom in the Free State for round 5 of the championship. Phakisa Freeway will play host to the competitors as they get ready to do battle on the track. Let's keep the power on as we experience an onboard lap of the track.
Right, we're on the straight going down, flat out, probably about 140, 150 k's an hour. Then it's very slippery. Gear down, slow down, take it easy into the corner, probably about 80 k's an hour. Hold it through the corner, ease on the power gently. You have to take it easy, it's very slippery. Down the straight, into 4th gear, flat out, little kink to the right, be careful of the water. And we keep it down. Coming up to the left-hander, little kink, and then it's a right-hander down to 3rd, 80 k's, 60 k's, and then straighten up and floor it. Keep it going. Be careful. There's a bit of a wet patch in the road. The car jerks to the side. To just take it easy. Gear down, slow down, go around in 3rd gear. Pick up the speed gently. Down into the straight, put it down, keep it at probably about 140, 150, slow down, turning left now, into a little kink, also very slippery here, up, and into 4th gear flat out, a little bit of a water running across the track, just have to be a bit careful that you don't lose it, coming back down, towards the main straight at the back and into 4th gear, a little bit of a kink coming up and all the way down to the fast 2 right-hand corners, but you just have to go in a little bit slower than normal with all the water around, and we keep it down, stay in 4th gear, through the kink, in the next one, and then there's a right hand corner coming up, down to 3rd gear, take it easy, slow down, balance the car, and right, nearly up to the pits, car is through, not too much sideways, and here we go to the straight, left, ease the power on, and that's it.
Grey and wet weather greeted the competitors as they arrived at the track on the Saturday morning. The SKF Pre-66 Sports and GT cars, Legend production cars, and Little Giants were the first cars out to brave the slippery conditions.
Who would think it's raining in Velkom? Got in the car this morning, it's the middle of winter and here's the rain. So yeah, it was a good qualifying, just stayed out the whole session because the track dries as the session goes on for longer and longer. So I think I put in some good laps towards the end. There's a couple of rivers, there's probably 3 or 4 rivers, so when you hit a river the car either goes left or right, so you've got to be a little bit awake. But yeah, it will certainly make it a lot more tricky for the drivers.
What does Larry Davies think of Phakisa?
It's very technical. It's probably less intimidating than Kyalami, but if you don't know the flow of the circuit, I think you can get caught out very quickly. It's my first time on this track, so I've had to learn it pretty quickly and also get to deal with the rain and the wet conditions. But it, in fact, flows nicely, Caroline. It's It's a nice and exciting track.
It's actually the first time I'm driving this BMW. My car my Alpha had some mechanical issues. It handles very nicely. It's a bit heavier than what I'm used to, and I think that maybe helps in the wet. I'm enjoying it. It's great fun to be on track.
How does Roger Houston drive in the wet?
Smoother, slower, and I try and avoid and ignore the fear of death. I've got a brake bias lever that I can put a little bit more braking onto the front wheels and a slightly lower tyre pressure.
Leading the field in these wet conditions is Jonathan Dutoy in the number 8 Daytona Coupe. Peter Lindenberg joins him on the front row. Colin Clay changed cars to the Chevy Nova, but it dropped a valve during qualifying and he won't be able to start the race. The marshals will definitely have their flags on standby as the racing is about to get underway here at Phakisa. The field make their way round the final bend and onto the start-finish straight. They'll be watching for the lights to go out before they gingerly accelerate down the start-finish straight. A bit of a slower start than we are used to, as most of the drivers will be trying to get a feel for the amount of grip or lack thereof that the track is offering up. In these classes, the drivers are allowed to use treaded tires, but as the type of tread varies between cars, so does their grip and handling in these wet conditions, and this will see a bigger variance of lap times than we're used to. This is sure to throw up some interesting racing. Jonathan Dutoy leads the field in his red Daytona ahead of Peter Lindenberg in his blue and white Lindenberg Racing Shelby Daytona. Franco Scribante in his orange and white Mustang is making his way up the order as he goes wheel to wheel with Patrick Gearing in his grey Alfa Romeo Giulia TI around turn 3 and heading towards the boot. Ferdy van Niekerk Jr. in his blue and white Mustang is hot on Scribante's heels and putting the pressure on Gearing. He takes the inside line and drives past the Alfa with the Mustang now firmly in his sights. Looking back from Erfurt Buerta, we see Roy Prondo in his Alfa coming under pressure from the two Mustangs. Franco Scribante is all over the back of him as he looks for a way past, coming out of the boot and heading towards Castle Corner. Prondo lets the back slip out on him, exiting Castle Corner, and this gives Scribante a chance. Erfurt Buerta meanwhile has made up some ground on Clive Densham and passes him on the outside as they head towards the Insignis. At the same time, Franco passes Roy Prondo and lines up Clive Densham's Alfa. Scribante slides through easily on the inside and heads after the orange Porsche 911R of Buerta. Dennis McBeath in his blue MPT, Nick Parrott in his MGB, Ishmael Beloy in his GSM Dart and Gino Alessio in his Alfa make their way towards the boot. Alessio is breathing down Beloy's neck as they round the boot. Brendan Tracy in his MGA is caught out by the slippery track and he's had an excursion onto the grass. He quickly rights himself and gets going again. The battle between Gino Alessio and Ishmael Beloy rages on as they enter Gielskop. Oh no! Beloy spins it and this allows Alessio to take the position. Towards the front of the field, Erfurt Buerta leads Ferdy van Niekerk Jr., who's being hotly pursued by the Alfa of Clive Densham. The drivers look to have settled into a rhythm and found where the grip is on the track, but there's still a fair amount of spray being thrown up from the cars in front, and this will be affecting their vision if they get too close. Erfurt Buerta will be trying to put in quick times as he will be only too aware of the fast Mustang behind him. Carrying a little too much speed into the corner, and this causes him to spin, allowing the Mustang and Alfa to pass him, just what he was doing his best to avoid. Buerta recovers from his spin and rejoins the track behind Patrick Gearing, having lost 4 places in the process. Erfurt Buerta isn't the only one having problems at that bend, as Gino Alessio also spins, and Larry Davies, Roger Houston and Cameron McLeod go past. Brendan Tracy in the Cezanne Plastics MGB leads Clive Winterstein's Porsche 356A into turn 3. A rapidly closing Peter Lindenberg is behind them as the faster, more powerful Shelby Daytona comes round to lap the 2 slower cars. Great angle here from the iron on board as we can see just how wet the track is, and we can get an idea of how hard the drivers have to work to keep it on the black stuff. Roy Pronto spins on the outside of Encini 1 and pirouettes round on the grass, dropping positions to Ifrit Woods and Patrick Gearing before retrieving his Alpha from the grass and back onto the track. He will be disappointed with that. Franco Scribante is having a good race in his Mustang, while Ferdy van Niekerk uses the horsepower of that Mustang to his advantage to power past the diminutive MGB of Brendan Tracy. The slippery conditions seem to be working well for the Mustangs. Maybe their weight is making it easier to maintain some grip. Clive Winterstein, recovering from a spin here, makes his way back onto the track, and the rain is still pouring down. A nice three-way battle developing between Roger Houston, Cameron McLeod, and Gino Alacio. Roger Houston leads the trio in his baby blue MGB. He is closely followed by the MGA of Cameron McLeod and the Alpha of Gino Alacio. Despite the tricky conditions, it's great to see such close racing. And round the boot they go. Behind them, Ferdy van Niekerk Sr. in his Porsche 356A goes wheel to wheel with the Alpha of Larry Davies, who is making his way back up the field after an earlier indiscretion. Mark Miller rounds the final bend in the blue and white BMW 2000, but it's the red Daytona Coupe of Jonathan Dutoy who takes the checkered flag and victory in race 1. Miller taking Class X victory. A spin for Brendan Tracy on his final lap, but he does get going again. Gino Alacio passing Cameron McLeod in this three-way battle. It's still Roger Houston leading the trio as they make their way round the final bend to the checkered flag. Less than 0.6 of a second separating the three. Fantastic racing. Coming through to take second place is Peter Lindenberg in his blue and white Shelby Daytona, 51 seconds behind the winner. Confirmation of the results then, and the two Mustangs were separated by just over a second, coming home in third and fourth. Clive Densham came home fifth, with Ifrit Butter taking sixth. I'm sure the drivers were looking forward to getting out of the rain.
We ran out of talent there. We missed your brake mark, and you ran wide, got stuck in the grass, and unfortunately that was that, game over. But up until then, it's tricky conditions, very slippery. Tires went off a bit at the end, and you know, that was it. It happens, we're learning. But otherwise, I had a good race.
It was good fun, but Roger is still, he's old and wise, so he sort of shut me out quite often.
Yeah, it was tricky. We managed to keep the headlights pointing in the right direction, and we did well. Cameron was on my tail, keeping me honest the whole time. It was a good race. Tried to stick it to me down the back there, but I had a little dirty trick to keep him behind me, and that's how it finished.
Race 2 gets underway for the SKF Pre-66 Sports and GTs and Legend production cars, with the two Daytonas leading the pack. Behind them, a pair of Mustangs. Conditions are quite a bit better for this race. With the rain having petered out, the track is much drier, and this will give the cars more grip. Already Dutoy's Daytona is starting to edge a bit of a gap on the rest of the field, but I don't think it will romp to victory with quite the same margin as he held in the last race. The Mustangs of Scribante and Van Niekerk are hanging onto the bumper of Peter Lindenberg's Daytona. Out of the boot and into Castle Corner. Lindenberg gets it a bit tangled up and Scribante is ready to pounce. He seizes his chance and goes past, taking the inside line. Clive Densham, meanwhile, closes in slightly on Ifrit Butter. Out of turn 9 and heading towards Gielskorp, and Peter Lindenberg is still sandwiched between the Mustangs of Scribante and Van Niekerk. Oh no! The Daytona is looking like a handful and Lindenberg is unable to keep it on the track. He goes straight on and Van Niekerk goes past. Lindenberg makes it back onto the track ahead of Ifrit Butter and Clive Densham. Side by side, the Porsche and the Alpha go. Buerta and Densham battling for position as they head into the Uncinis. The little Alpha is not going to give way to the Porsche, and he puts the power down to edge ahead of Buerta heading down the back straight. Buerta strikes back into turn 9 and takes the inside line and the advantage. The Alpha has no answer for him at the moment. On board with the iron of Ferdy van Niekerk Sr. in his Porsche 356A as he leads a gaggle of cars through to the final bend. Behind him, Roger Houston in his MGB, Gary Stacey in his Ford Cortina, Ishmael Beloy in his GSM Dart, Chris Mayers in his TVR Vixen, and Cameron McLeod in his MGA. The battle from race 1 continues. Peter Lindenberg in his Shelby Daytona has managed to get ahead of Clive Densham and Eerfurt Buerta, but this spin sees him lose time again. And as he gets the Daytona back onto the track, Eerfurt Buerta and Clive Densham close right back up on him. Patrick Gearing's Alpha is managing to hold Roy Prondo's Alpha at bay for the moment as they head towards the boot. Prondo is pushing hard, but it isn't quite close enough to Gearing to make a move yet as they head into Castle Corner. Roger Houston leads Gary Stacey, Ishmael Beloy and Cameron McLeod round Gielskorp. Race leader Jonathan Dutoy is picking his way through this battle as he makes his way round the final bend and laps the group. Dennis McBeath in his blue MPT has Mark Miller in the BMW 2000 breathing down his neck. Miller takes the inside line and the position away from McBeath as they head to Gielskorp. The MPT fights back and takes the inside line into the final bend, and they're neck and neck as they head down the start-finish straight. Dennis McBeath edges out an advantage as they enter turn 1. Great driving there from the pair. Nick Parrott in his little MGB has his mirrors full of orange and white Mustang as Franco Scribante bears down on him. Parrott makes way for the faster car, and the Mustang of Ferdy van Niekerk Jr. follows Scribante through as well. The Mustangs are nose to tail. Coming round the final bend, it's the red Daytona of Jonathan Dutoy who heads towards the checkered flag to take his second victory of the day. Behind him, almost as one, the Mustangs of Franco Scribante and Ferdy van Niekerk Jr. separated by just 0.3 of a second. In the three-way battle for fourth position, Eerfurt Buerta leads Clive Densham from Peter Lindenberg, but Lindenberg comes through and passes Densham to move into fifth place. Eerfurt Buerta finished 0.6 of a second ahead of Peter Lindenberg, who finished just under 0.4 of a second ahead of Clive Densham. The overall championship for the Pre-66 Sports and GTs is getting really close as well, with just 7 points separating Dennis McBeath and Eerfurt Buerta at the top of the table. Franco Scribante is a clear leader in the Legend Production cars. Ferdy van Niekerk Sr. leads the Little Giants from Nick Parrott.
I didn't have a great race. I struggled because I still had the wet setup on the car, but I lost the tag into turn 7 or 8 on the first lap, so that delayed me a lot. And then I caught up on a slower pair of cars having a dice, and when these guys passed me, I was on the grass because I had to avoid. I didn't want. I almost took out Clive Winterstein's Porsche, and I didn't want to have that little tick on my shoulder, to be honest. So I went through the bushes first, and they got me. And then I thought, I don't want to bugger up their race either. But then when I saw when it was getting towards the end, and I thought, well, it didn't look like Clive was going to make it, so I thought I'll just squeeze past him with like 2 corners to go. So it was a lekker race.
No, Everett and I had a wonderful race. We all compadres on racing, and we haven't kind of got to do it together lately because we're in different classes and whatever. So today we entered the same class and we had an excellent race. We had a wonderful dice. And then right in the end, Peter came and stuck his nose in between us, which, yeah, but it was great. It was a great race.
That was seriously door handle to door handle. It's been a while since Clive and I had a close dice because this was one of the closest we had. Ran the corners on those slippery road surface, it's really tough. But I appreciate Peter's kindness to let us pass, and pretend that he goes rallying to give us a go.
Coming up after the break on History in Motion, we have great action from the Pre-84 Sports and GTs.